All right. Welcome everyone to Professionals on the Grind. And today we have the wonderful Alyssa Levia. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Hawaii.
Lavalle. Oy, mira. Okay, so why don't we start off? And you tell me a little bit about yourself. Where is your family from? Where were you raised?
So I was raised in Covina, which is part of like the San Gabriel Valley of Los Angeles County, and I still live here. So I've been here basically my entire life. My dad was from El Sereno, and my mom grew up a little bit in where did she grow up? Villa Verde area. So it's also kind of near Covina. All very
Okay.
similar.
So your parents, would you say they're second or third generation?
They would be second generation.
Oh, that's fantastic. That makes you third generation. And do you know a little bit of history about your grandma or your
Uh,
grandparents?
no, I mean not really. So my grandma, she was born here. Her parents, I don't think were. So yeah, so that would make me third generation, right?
Yes.
Like yeah. So my grandma, her first language though was Spanish because her parents were Spanish speaking. And then my that's my grandma on my mom's side. And then my grandma on my dad's side, um, she was born here as well. So
I think you are such a great person to talk to because I feel like what a lot of people don't want to acknowledge or sort of come to terms with is the discrimination that second, third, fourth generation Hispanics sometimes deal with from other Latinos. Do you feel like you ever experienced that growing up or even now as an adult?
mm, I mean, I think I do get looked at, I guess, in a different way, but I mean, not necessarily because I do have other friends and family members who are obviously second and third generation. Um, I think the biggest thing that I deal with is not speaking Spanish.
And they're like, "Oh, you're yo no sabo," or, things like that. Okay,
Really?
but but that's okay because you know what? There are some people who are first generation that don't speak a lick of Spanish either. I did sort of want to talk into like, you being a third and second is a third generation Latino. Do you identify with any of the Latinidad that, from the community? Did you have to like search for on your own? How did that begin to incorporate into your life?
Yeah, I think I had to like kind of look onto it in my own way. But I mean, my aunts and my uncles are more, I guess, present. My mom and my dad, I wouldn't say that they're completely removed from the culture, but they're just like a lot more Americanized, which
Right.
obviously I am too. But I mean, I enjoy the food.
No, and you know what? There's no wrong answer. I think from what I have experienced or have seen other people experience, it is such a negative thing for anyone to even say, "Oh, I'm third generation. I don't really identify with the Hispanic heritage." But you know what? It's kind of like speaking Spanish. You don't use it, you lose it. And I don't think a lot of first generation um, kids sort of realize is that you do lose it. Like even now, I speak more English than when I do Spanish with my siblings. My parents ended up learning Spanglish a little bit to kind of get by for the younger siblings. So it's so interesting because when we think about it, our kids are going to be second, third generation, and kind of going into that, it sort of it peaks into my next question for you, right? So your parents are educated. Did they go to college? What kind of work did they do?
So my dad, he didn't graduate high school. He actually got his GED when I believe I was in high school. So when I was
Oh,
about
wow, that's awesome.
he was like, this kid is not going to graduate before me. So I think that was his own like internal motivation to get his
Yeah.
G. And my mom, she graduated high school and then she did some college credits, but she didn't graduate college. So I would be the first generation to go to college.
To go to college, right? That's so fascinating. Do you know why your parents didn't go to college, saying that they were second generation?
So my mom, I think because she started her career so young, she started working for the courts when she was 16. She still works for the courts.
Okay.
So she just automatically worked and worked and worked and worked. And she didn't, I don't know if it wasn't pushed for her to pursue her education. It
Right.
was you need to work and you need to be able to provide for yourself and provide, as far as my dad goes, he had a different upbringing. I mean, like I said, he grew up in El Sereno. He's one of 8 children. He just, I don't know, the resources and everything weren't there, and that
Right.
it wasn't necessary for him to go either. It was to work and to provide and to
Right.
really.
And did they have children young? Did they meet young? And
So they had me. I want to say my mom was 24 when they had me. So I mean, I'm the only child. So aside from my brother, but he's.
right. And here's sort of an interesting question. Were they religious? Did you grow up with Catholicism?
I did. I went to private school. I
Oh,
went to private school. Mhm.
okay. So did you learn the restos in English or Spanish? I'm just kidding. Oh, that's interesting because the religious aspect is lost after a few generations, right? Like, I don't think my kids are going to grow up in Catholicism whatsoever, and a lot of my siblings either. Maybe like 1 or 2 will pass it down, but that's also something that kind of gets lost in translation. But it's interesting to see that you're still practicing it. And I don't want to assume, so I'm going to ask: did you grow up with the typical machismo, sexism in your household or anything like that?
No,
No.
not at all.
Lucky you.
I know I am very lucky. I mean, there's a running joke on my dad's side of the family that he's the 5th sister. My dad, my dad like hangs out with all the girls, I guess more, but yeah, I mean, he cooks. He's the primary cook in the household still with my stepmom. So I was lucky enough to not have that. And I think that's
No, that's fantastic. I absolutely love that. And did your parents push you to go to college?
yes, yes, they did. They both did. I think my dad more so just because he didn't have that education and he didn't have that career stability like my mom did. So his
Right,
thing was for my degree. It wasn't necessarily for it to open doors. It was so no doors would be closed on me. So
right.
a lot of times that he would apply for jobs and they said no because you don't have the degree. And his was even to his high school degree, so it just it was very, very important for them for me.
No, and that's such a great conversation to have with anyone because as you can see now, even the job market, like it's interesting that you mentioned that your mom has a career, right? Because I think when we jumped into the workforce, it was either you had a degree, but you didn't have the work experience, or you had the work experience, but you didn't have a degree. So we were both sort of stopped in our professional development and wanting to move up because we all both have limitations. So the generational like differences and like educational differences sort of hit the same wall at the same exact time. And so when you mentioned, your education, because you did send me your resume and everything, you went to community college first. What was that decision for you to go there first instead of a 4 year?
So honestly, I didn't get into university. So
Yeah,
that was the only choice. I was either not going to go to school and I was going to work and I wasn't going to let, not getting into the colleges that I applied for stop me from going to college. And so community college in the long run, I think obviously it saved me a lot of money
yeah, no, it really does.
college. And I think, I like the path that it created for me. So
No, and I absolutely love your honesty because I think a lot of people were too embarrassed or too ashamed or have such a negative connotation with community college. At least when I was going to school, it was something people looked down on, like, oh, you're going to community college, blah, blah, blah. But one, if I could do it again, I didn't get into my dream school. I would have just gone to community college and transferred into my dream school. So, a shout out to the community college system. It is a great pathway, and I did want to ask you, how many years were you in the community college?
so I was there for 4 years. I
Okay,
changed my major several times because I was so indecisive. I didn't know
right.
exactly what I wanted to do. I think in hindsight, I really shouldn't have listened to my parents so much of be a
Were they
nurse.
trying to tell you be a doctor or something?
Yeah,
Or
exactly. And I think at the time I thought, yeah, okay, I can do this, I can do this. But the classes were really hard and I was just not retaining it. I was not interested. And I ended up with like 5 associates. So because I changed my no, seriously, I changed my major so many times. But I was there, yeah, for 4 years, more than the college.
And how did you finally decide your major? Did you just decide once you transferred or right before you transferred?
So, I actually signed up for the associate degree to transfer program that they have that's linked to the Cal States. So
Yeah,
basically, you can choose. It just depends on the major, and then you're guaranteed entrance into one of the Cal States. So I was like, this is gonna work. I'm gonna figure out which of these that you know I'm drawn to because
right.
I'd be damned if I wasn't gonna get into another college again. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm gonna guarantee my spot. So I chose business administration because at the time I was working for the county, and a lot of the subject matter correlates to public administration in a
Right.
sense. It overlaps. It's just a different sector.
No, it really does. It just business, public administration, it's all the same. It's all the same. And when you were making that choice to work while you were in college, was it that my family already works within the county and this is like an easy or this is the pathway I want to go to? Or were you just like working and applying to anywhere that you could get a job?
Yeah, so at first I was doing that. I was very fortunate because my grandma worked for the county, my mom works for the county, and my grandmother had heard about this program, and it's called the REACH program. And I don't remember for the life of me what the REACH acronym stands for. It was with Parks and Recreation, and basically they trained you to be a camp counselor, but you took 3 to 4 months or something, and they gave you leadership training, they gave you this CPR class, and all these other things that just correlate with the program. And I was able to get in. You had to be a student, and that's how I started. So it kind of just all fell into place.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Mhm.
And before we get into your, your legacy status as a county and your family tree, I did want to ask you, knowing all the information now that you have after you've completed your undergrad, would you do anything different going back to school?
Mm, I mean, I feel like the one thing that I did miss out on is like that whole college life. I wasn't able to be in clubs. I wasn't able to be in a
Why
sorority because I didn't have the time.
not?
By
Okay.
the time I got into Cal Poly, I was working full time, and I had to take night classes,
Oh,
and
yeah.
or on the weekend. There was no option for me to even be there during the day because I was working from 8 to 4:30 every day, and that's the bulk of campus life. So
Right.
that's the only thing I think I would have, I don't know, just tried a little harder in high school. A little bit more focused. We'll take it all the way back there and then try to just make that decision for my associates in community college. But again, I didn't really have anyone to tell me that those were even available to me. You know what I mean? Those
Right, right. Do you feel like, the counselor, like you weren't going to counselors, you weren't going to like professors to get guidance or advice. You were just trying to figure it out on your own.
Yeah, I mean, I went to a couple counselors and they were just super discouraging. That's the
Yeah.
one thing about the community college that I was like, what the heck? I mean, they were honest because I wasn't doing well in like my chemistry classes. You know what I mean? And they were like, well, you're not going to be able to go to nursing school. And I'm like, well, gee, thanks, but can you at least tell me an option that I could do?
Yeah.
Like, you're young, you're impressionable, and now they're telling you, sorry, it's not working out. So it just was a little discouraging too.
No, it's difficult. And I think that conversation of because you are a first generation college student, right? Like your parents, even though they were born here, they did have a little more leverage in, America, the US, California. If you don't know what you're getting yourself into within the education system, you can be just as lost as someone who doesn't speak a lick of English because one, it's what academic integrity with your parents, right? Where it's like, well, now I'm a college student. Do I really want to tell my parents that I'm failing my classes? I know I didn't tell my mom when I was on academic probation. And it's an embarrassing conversation because now you're dealing with finances. Now you're dealing with your life. Essentially, it's not high school anymore. You can't take a summer class and you do reach a point where you run out of money and you just can't get back into the habit of being a good student. I think you kind of touched on something that's really dismissed by a lot of people, and that's not knowing what kind of study student you are in college. Like, I know I was smart enough to get by in high school, and I just completely thought I could do the same thing for college. And I hit the ground face first. And I found out that that was not the case. And I think that's something that a lot of people overlook or dismiss. And especially if you feel like you're drowning and you're lost in college or anywhere in life, just study, figure out what your study habits are, figure out what your study plan is. How did you get from not being a good student to figuring it out? How did you organize yourself?
I think I don't know, I just flipped the script really. I mean, I really just prioritized even from my, community college to my undergrad, at Cal Poly, and my master's degree. My GPA now is vastly different from my GPA at Cal Poly. And
Right.
that's because I have dedicated the time and I have, made sacrifices. I've had open conversations with family and friends to let them know, this is my priority right now. I can't always be there. And it's not forever, it's just
Right.
temporary. But I had to put my education first and then also stick to that plan of, okay, I'm going to do these readings this day and then I'm going to do this studying this day, or however, whatever the class calls for. But that's really how I navigated the whole thing.
No, well, that's good. And I think you kind of touched on something really interesting because if I were to do college all over again, I would have worked and I would have like tried to intern. And you're, sort of speaking the complete opposite. But do you feel like after you graduated, you were just in a better position because you did have that professional resume already built when you were in school? Because when you were in school, because there is a drastic difference to someone that just has their BA versus someone that has a BA and they've been working. So now as a professional in the field, do you kind of look at that differently or do you still resent that?
I don't resent it. I just feel like I guess I missed out on things. But I mean, working too, I know from Parks and Recreation, it's so neat seeing us all grow because we were kids. We're like 18, 19 years old. And I know people in several different county departments. So it's nice to see them grow too, and I don't regret not working because too, it makes me more competitive.
It
So
does.
yeah, so it's not, I don't know. I just feel like maybe I should have worked more part-time or something. I don't know. I really don't know, but I don't think I regret it.
Yeah, no, it's okay. We're here now. And you can always go to a bar and experience life. Wonderful. So you and Alyssa and I know each other from our master's programs. Shout out to CSUN. What was your defining factor to pursue your master's degree?
Um, you know, This program is continually marketed to LA County employees, and I kept
Oh,
just
I
seeing
didn't know that.
I kept seeing it, and I was finally like, "You know what? I'm just gonna apply, and I'm just gonna do it, and we'll see what happens," because I plan on staying in, well, hopefully Los Angeles County. I really have a deep commitment. Um, but the public sector in general, I enjoy serving the community. Like, this is what I've been doing now for the last 10 years. Like, I'm going to build on it. I found happiness here. And so I'm just going to do it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I think it's something when people finally find their passion in their profession, it's easy to do the work, right? Like if you love it, it's not really work. And there's a lot of truth to that. And being that we're still in the program right now, would you recommend a master's degree to people that are thinking about it?
Yeah, you know what? I was actually talking to one of my friends, Elisa. Hey, girl. But I was telling her about the program. And I'm like, hey, if you ever want to go back to school, like, it's online, it's super flexible. You know what I mean? It's rigorous, and you get to meet a lot of people. But the education's good, and I would definitely recommend if you're considering doing it.
Yeah, so do I. And one of my biggest factors is listen, if you are thinking about a career trajectory that's going up, eventually you're going to need your degree. You're going to have to check off that box and you're going to have to get your degree. And something someone told me was, you don't have kids right now, you're not married, this is the time to do it. But even if you are, you should still do it. And now I want to segue into something that you lightly touched based on, but you do identify as a county legacy, right? Your grandma was in the county, your mom was in the county. Tell us a little bit about their history in the county and then what made you follow in their footsteps? Was it something that you search for yourself or just being around it? I know a lot of people would be resentful
Mhm.
for, my parents were a doctor. I don't want to be a doctor. What is your family story in that?
Yeah, so I'll start off by saying that my mother is my grandmother's only child. I'm my mother's only child. So we have very close relationships. You know what I mean? We're three
Yeah.
generations of women, and I look up to them very, very much. And my grandma, she worked as a payroll clerk with the fire department, and she was doing that for years. And then my mom, like I said, she works for the courts, and she's been working with them since she was 16 years old. So when I started mine, I mean, it was my grandma and my mom like, oh, apply for student worker positions, oh, apply for this or apply for that, you know what I mean? And I finally just did. But again, I look up to them, you know what I mean? Like, they are working women and they're driving forces in my life, and they've made a living and they've been happy doing what they've been doing. And I think it's not that I necessarily want to follow exactly in their footsteps. I want to make a different path for myself in the county, but I still want to be in that sector, you know?
Right. And I think that is absolutely beautiful. You are surrounded by strong women. And that's something that I eventually want to pass down to my daughter's daughters, because I did grow up in a little bit of the machismo, and in strong women, I can share that with my sisters, but there's a difference between that mother grandmother bond that
Mhm.
is just continuous and it keeps getting passed down. And that's beautiful. So I love that you're sharing that. I do want to ask you, and if you're willing to share the position, you don't have to say what you do for the county, but how did you get into the position that you're currently in? Because if we look at your resume, you do have a wonderfully stacked county trajectory, right? You started at Parks and Rec, then you were in Children and Family Services. Were you bouncing around the different departments to see what really stuck with you, what you liked? How did that journey work for you?
Yeah, so I think I would have stayed in Parks and Recreation because I really did enjoy it if full-time positions were available.
Okay.
But I don't know what it is. It's called a recreation services leader, and basically it's just a fancy name for a camp counselor. You know, you work with kids in summer programs, after school programs, tiny tots. There's a whole bunch of different things that you can do. But you only have maybe one permanent recreation services leader and a supervisor to a site. So which is at one of the parks. So there's otherwise they're all recurrent positions, which are temporary positions. You know, they're hourly. Um, so when I was in Parks and Recreation, I got pulled to work at the district office. And there I got all my clerical experience. And once I had that, I applied for an intermediate typist clerk, which is a very, I guess it's a popular entry level position with the county. And then that's when I was picked up with DCFS. And then the next step up was a senior typist clerk. And that's when I was picked up with the district attorney's office. So, and there I was able to progress with my like secretarial skills. And that's where I'm at right now.
That's fantastic. And can you kind of speak on the administrative component and the passion behind that? Because I think a lot of people think administration, you're behind a desk, you're doing clerical work. What reward do you find in being in this field and taking on these certain positions?
I mean, there's just so much to learn at every single position. And I think too, I just like helping people. And
Right.
whenever I can be an asset, then that's where I'm going to progress. And I'm just going to do my job the best that I can. And then, too, it's a lot of customer service. I'm with the public and I'm helping them. So, I mean, I like it.
Right. And you just recently got a promotion. So congratulations. How did you prep for that? And how do you prevent yourself from being complacent and stagnant, right? Because when you
Yeah.
say I work for the DA, that within itself sounds impressive, but that's not enough for you. Like you want to continue growing within the county. So tell us what your prep work is and then what keeps you motivated.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think at every position I have held, I've always asked for more work. And I
Okay.
mean, in the county, I guess there's parameters because people can start working out of class. Um, and I don't know. I've never been that person to say, well, that's not in my class spec, so I'm not going to do it. I've
Okay.
always asked for more because I want to learn more. And so
Right.
that's how I was able to promote because I was already doing the work of what I am now. So I don't know. I stay motivated by constantly learning because I'm always like, oh, okay, like how can I help? And oh, okay, well, what can you teach me? And I'm always asking these questions. So yeah, that's basically it.
No, it's great. I think a lot of people sort of steer away from that sometimes because they're like, "Well, I don't want more work," but there are benefits to doing more work. There's a difference between allowing a corporation to take advantage of you versus if you see you're doing work and you're getting rewarded by, receiving these promotions or going after the promotions and actually obtaining the job, it's beneficial. You learn how to read the workplace. Like, did you know, like, did you ever feel like you had a boss that was trying to keep you in a position because you were really good at what you did and they were afraid to lose you? And what was that conversation like if you ever experienced that?
So I have been very, very fortunate that I have had supervisors that have pushed me to do whatever I want. You know what I mean? They
Oh,
want me
that's
to grow,
fantastic.
and they've been really taking on like mentorship roles. Um, Even my last supervisor, she was very, very sad to see me go. Uh, but she was also very, very happy for me. And I was happy for her because I'm a product of what she's taught me over the last 4 years. You know what I mean?
Right.
I owe her a lot. And yeah, again, I've been super, super lucky that I've had these good experiences. And I hope that one day I can give someone those good experiences too.
Right. No, of course. And I think what a lot of people like my last boss, amazing. She again was a mentor, was guiding me and was helping me navigate the workplace.
Mm.
But at the same time, I did have someone that was not willing to promote me because she liked me in her department. And there was a lot of office politics. So it's also learning how to read the organization, right? Maybe you have to just switch counties or something. But if you're lucky and you have a great environment, use that to your advantage. And when you have these conversations with your bosses to say like, "Hey, I'm ready to leave," or do you sort of take a position and wait for them to say, "Hey, this job might be really good for you." What does that look like for you? Do you
Mm,
have a timeline, a 3-year itch?
yeah, I think I kind of hit that at my last position. Uh, all kind of happened quick though, and it worked out the way it was supposed to be because at my last position, I was a senior typist clerk, which I was the receptionist, and then I became a secretary by working out of class because sometimes that happens. And then I got placed on the item permanently. And then right after I got on off probation, that's when I promoted. So it all kind of spiraled into working the way I wanted it to. But um, yeah, I was just constantly asking for more work and to learn more things, and she was able to do that for me. So
Well, that's fantastic. Do you have uh, no, what advice do you wish you had from the beginning, knowing what you know now, like career-wise?
career wise, I think um, just keep being curious. You know, I don't have any. I don't know. I just don't have any regret in my career. I guess I've just
Yeah,
again been very fortunate that I've had these people that I've crossed paths with that have been paths with. I'm sorry, that have been very very motivating. You know what I mean?
right.
And they're always pushing for me to grow. So me being curious has helped me to grow, and it's made it easier for them because I will so willing to learn that they want
Right.
to teach me, you know?
Right. No, you benefit more from being a sponge and absorbing things from mentors, colleagues, bosses that are positive. How do you navigate mentorship? Like this is something that I like talking to people about. Like, do you have any mentors now outside of your bosses, or is that something that is easy and accessible?
Yeah, so I mean, even now I I signed up for like a mentorship program because I am trying to look for people outside of my network that I can
Mhm.
learn from, right? Because it really is just the people that I have crossed paths with. And then like my mom, my stepmom, my grandma, my dad, people that I can constantly talk to for
Right.
advice who have careers of their own, and can help me navigate because not only does my grandmother and my mother work for the public sector. My stepmom is a retired LAPD officer. You know what I mean? So it's like I get to go to her too. And then my stepdad works for Orange County. So I'm just surrounded by all these people who I can go to. And I'm very, very blessed that I'm able to do that, you know?
So hypothetically, let's say you didn't have this like amazing family, and what you do, what advice would you give someone who maybe didn't have this strong knit familial, basket or well, I don't know, like village,
But I mean, if you're starting off, I think you look for that one person that you gravitate towards. You look for that one person that you find qualities that you might want to emulate or that you really admire, and you go to them. You know what I
Right.
mean? You seek advice from them and you go from there.
No, and I think that's great advice. And honestly, look for mentors. I think it's actually amazing that you're looking for a mentor. Now, my job has a mentor program. And I was placed with someone, and she is a retired administrator for Warner Brothers. And, I work in a nonprofit. She's coming from private,
Mhm.
but people who have been at the end of their career already, she's retired, they have so much information to give you and so much knowledge. They were able to peak at the top. And again, I'm like you, ask questions. You're already at a no. The worst thing you can get is no. One of the feedback I get is you're very inquisitive. You have to be. And being inquisitive is right next to being an advocate for yourself. And if you're not fighting for yourself, nobody else will. Like you can be the best employee, but if you're not letting people know, hey, I kind of do want to like move on to this position. I want to get that title jump, it's not going to happen for you either. Like I think the workplace has just changed. You don't get promotions anymore. You have to apply for positions, especially in the county and in nonprofits. I think even privates now too, they hardly give a promotion. You have to apply for the position, perhaps. I'm in the private sector, but it's they're bridging that network. Now, would you say county networking is easy because you did hop around a few offices? Did
Mhm.
you like have your boss help you network with that department, or how did you navigate that?
So, with Parks and Recreation, I think it was just again, we were all kids, and it was just getting to know everyone. And then when I went to DCFS, it was kind of brand new to me. I didn't know anyone there. So I just made my introductions, and I mean, I still say hello to everyone here and there. There's good old social media. I get to see some people that I used to work with. And then with the DA's office, there's so many people that are constantly shifting offices. You just get to meet a bunch of people all the time.
No, that's fantastic. So you just applied. There wasn't like a cheat code to anything. You just said, "This is the direction I'm going. Let me apply," and now you're a candidate. That's it.
Exactly.
No, well, that's great to know too, because you know what? The county does not play favoritism, people.
I guess, they always say it's good to know people, but at the end of the day, you still have to take the test. You need to pass the test. Then you need
Right.
to get banded in a reachable band. Then you need to interview. So there's a lot there's a lot of processes that it's not just like, oh, because I know you, I can get you in. It's not.
Right. Okay, wait. Because the county exams are something that people dread and fear. How did you prep for that? Is there a book? Like you were talking to people? What was that process for you?
So, I mean, I didn't have to take the exams used to be in person. Now, thankfully, you get to take them in the comfort of your own home. You know what I mean? You get to like stress out a little bit behind closed doors. I don't remember the tests kind of being as hard as they are now. There's a lot
Okay.
of like the deductive reasoning, numerical reasoning. I'm not sure, but they have these test preps online. I don't really feel like they correlate to the actual test, but I
Right.
mean, people could interpret it differently. I just personally don't. So I try as much as I can to prep, but at the end of the day, it's kind of just like, you know what? If this is for me, God, let it be for me, and we'll get there.
No, I think so. It's like the SATs. Oh my gosh, I did not do well there, so I'm not going to be applying to again. But it's good to know because I think when I first got out of college, I'm like, oh, I'll just go work in the public sector. You need to take exams, and it's not just like an easy link. At least when I was applying, then like it is a process and it is highly competitive. So I think you can have the exams done before you apply to positions, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So if you're thinking about it, go take the exam and then go ahead and apply
Oh,
once you
wait, I don't think I understood your question. You
like
can
when I
test
think
prep, yes.
yeah, I think people can take the exam and then have their score and then apply for positions, right?
So, to my understanding with the county, I mean, you could take the test prep, but what will happen is you have to be invited to the exam. And if it's in a certain time frame that they use that same exam for something else that you apply for, then it can roll over.
I see. So you apply if you're a candidate that they want, they send you that link.
Mhm.
Okay, see, I've never applied for a county job, people. So
Yeah.
it's good to know because some people like are slapped in the face and sometimes, people get disillusioned with the walls that they keep hitting
Mhm.
for certain positions. But if you really want it, you got to just roll with the punches and keep pushing forward and know that these are the steps that you need, to be a lawyer, you need to go take the bar and then you can start practicing. So it's the exact same thing. We want great county, representatives in there working for us, just like Alyssa. So that's fantastic. So I and this is me knowing you personally.
Mhm.
You are so impressive, Alyssa, because you're very detailed and organized. And so and I'm trying to get even more detailed and organized. You're at a completely different level than I am. And I started off as an admin assistant as well. So here's the first question, right? What skills did you develop early in your career when
So
it comes to organization and just being orderly?
yeah, so I think working in the district office, I did some like procurement things and you kind of have to keep everything in order, and also too, you're dealing with a lot of personalities who don't want their paperwork messed up. So it's kind of like you have to pay attention. Even now, I mean, working for a prosecuting agency, there's really not room for error. So
Right.
like I try. I mean, obviously I'm not perfect, but yeah, I like to keep things a little
Are
bit.
there any okay, so are there any softwares that you use, any, like, favorite agenda brands? Like, what is it that you've been able to sort of surround yourself with the resources you need to be as organized and as diligent as you are?
Yeah, so I mean, I love making a good spreadsheet on Excel, a good old Excel. To-do lists are really good. I do have a planner. Um, Cloth and paper has some really good inserts. It just depends on what you like really and what works for you. But I like to see everything laid out and I like to see my week plan. Google Calendar is a really good, nice time blocking tool. Yeah, I mean, there's just so many things that you could do.
No, it's fantastic. I mean, I'm currently in the search for a new, agenda system, right, or note tracking system. So I'm using Notes from Microsoft, which
Yeah.
I like. And I don't wanna make this your greatest career strength, but what do you consider your greatest career strength? Would you say your organizational skills would be at the top or
Yeah, and I think just my willingness to learn. I think
mm.
that would probably be my strongest one.
No, and honestly, that is a very strong skill set to even have because if you aren't able to assess, instruct, and learn by yourself, you're going to drown. You come off more impressive when you're self-sufficient than when you keep asking questions. And asking questions isn't wrong, but if you want to make an impression, make sure that that's one of your strengths. And I did want to touch base on Alyssa's avid reading. You are a reader. Okay, so here's a little confession. I am trying to be well read, but I do let life sort of dwindle me down. And when I met Alyssa, that was the first thing I was impressed by. You were reading books like it was no one's business. And I think I asked you, I was like, hey, how do you read? And I tell everyone this. Like I've had you in my conversations. I don't know if your ears are ringing, but you told me, you said, I'm reading books before I go to bed and I'm reading as I wake up. I'm not scrolling to social media. And that hit me right here because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm wasting time on TikTok. I'm wasting time on YouTube, even just watching shows when it could be more productive with my time. How do you, how did you develop that? And how do you continue to move forward and allowing these distractions to take away from you being an avid reader like you are?
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I do love a good scroll. I do
Of
love a good
course.
Netflix. But I think just I had like this morning and this nighttime routine. I am a morning person, but it's still hard to get out of bed sometimes, you know what I mean?
Right.
Right there, and I read a couple chapters, okay, I'm good. Now let's get my day starting. And then too, just to wind down at night, it's nice to like just crack open a book and read. And you know, in the morning and the night, I do like my fiction books, not really like the personal growth and the nonfiction piece, you know
Oh,
what I mean? Because those are not I enjoy reading them. I'm not saying that I don't, but
right.
it takes a little bit more, I guess, thinking
Right.
as opposed to like a fiction books is escaping, you
It's
know?
fun, right? It'll wake you up versus
Exactly, exactly. So I mean, I do enjoy reading, but don't get me wrong, sometimes I get overwhelmed by the reading that we have to do for school. So my reading for pleasure takes a back burner and it's just school focused. But I mean, we all have different seasons, so it just depends.
No, of course, but hold on. Give yourself credit because I was impressed because we were in school and you were giving book reviews and my excuse for not pleasure reading is like, well, I'm in school, so I'm not gonna pleasure read. But here I am, getting that TikTok person saying, you something, something, put your phone down. And I'm like, I'm hurting my eyesight being on my phone. I might as well be reading a book that's more productive because it increases your vocabulary, it helps your grammar, helps your speech, it makes you a well-rounded individual, and it's more beneficial to read than to be on your phone. But again, thank you for that because you motivate me to read every
Oh, thank
single
you.
day.
Thank you. But you know what? I will tell you that there are some like informative, Instagram accounts, informative TikTok. I don't really go on TikTok, but I'm sure there are because I see
Right.
the reposting that, they're good information too. It just depends on who you follow and
No,
what.
and that segues into our next conversation. So I do want to talk about your social media account because it is impressive. You are well, first, I want to talk about what made you decide to start on the kind of social media account that you have, and you can speak on that a little bit more.
Yeah, so I mean, I kind of really have, positioned myself as like a personal growth and, personal development kind of girl. I don't know. I've always been motivated and I've always liked motivating others. And
Right.
I just thought, you know what? It's time that my social media translates that. Because at the end of the day, I am a government employee.
Right.
So I am well aware that I am in the public eye and I need something that reflects me as a person. You know what I mean? So that's when I decided that, okay, I'm going to change my Instagram and, of course, make it all pink because person. But I've learned so much and I think it would be a disservice not to share what I've learned given the fact that I've been so blessed that people have taught me so much. If that makes
And what is the proudest thing that you have shared on your social media account when it comes to personal development or professional development?
I think just staying motivated and I don't know that growth is constantly happening and it
Right.
could be for everyone, you know what I mean? And again, I speak about like having these different seasons in our life and sometimes growth doesn't look the same as it did 2 years ago, just like it won't look the same 2 months, so I think everyone just is on a different path and their path is beautiful, and once they recognize that, there's so much that can happen from it.
Right. And, I do want to talk about social media and the line of work that we have, right? So it's interesting because before I started this project and right before I made my Instagram private and I created a professional Instagram, I didn't like full on erase everything, but I did want to have something that was presentable for my professional network, right? Because we are in the public sector, people that you work with want your social media. They want your LinkedIn. They want to know who you are and you do have to present yourself well. I'm not going to post me raging at bars with my siblings, but I'm going to go on and make sure that everything is well composed and written and I'm being strategic with what I am posting. But what I was hesitant about was if I do one day decide to run for office, being a social media influencer, I think for our generation, it sort of looked as a negative, right? And it depends on what kind of influence you are, but politicians today cannot run and cannot be successful if they do not have social media. So
Mm.
there's a little odd balance within social media where it is like politically or public sector acceptable to one which it isn't.
Mm.
How do you sort of bridge that to be right in the middle? Because I do feel like you have, curated all of your content to sort of fit that position.
Mm.
How would you sort of advise other people on what to do, especially if they are in the county?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's just setting boundaries. There's some things that I am more than willing to share and other things that are very, private to me. And it doesn't mean that I'm not an open book because I very much am a lot of the time, but it's just there are some things that are just personal for me. And there's some things that, okay, cool, everyone can know this. I don't that I just don't see it as it has to be an either or, it just could be a
So
perfect
you've never seen it affect you in any way? Like, it's like, "Oh, I found your social media, it's a little weird," or like, "Oh, you're really this." Like, it's just it hasn't affected
balance.
you at all.
No, fortunately, I mean, for me, it has not. I mean, I can't speak in the future. Maybe one day someone be like, "Oh, I
No,
saw you."
knock on wood, it's not.
No, I don't know, but fortunately for me, it hasn't. So,
No, that's fantastic. And I think social media is such a resourceful tool. Like, for example, this platform here is to help young professionals, right? We had to sort of navigate the workplace on our own. And even despite you having family that worked within the county, you can't say, "Oh, that's my grandma, give me the job." You had to navigate that yourself, and it's a process for everyone.
mhm,
And I think in wanting to do a project like this and having you on, it's sort of sharing that knowledge with people, like what good are we doing. And your social media platform, when I'm on there and I'm following you and I'm looking at what you're posting, it's all things that make me want to develop myself. Like, again, I think of Alyssa, I think polished, organized, and just
you
sharp, right? You're kind.
emotional. Thank you.
No, but again, like we just were in that same group, and that was immediately like looking at how you diligently worked on your PowerPoints, right? So I think something that I do want to touch on, because you are a perfect person to sort of touch on this, is first impressions, right?
Mhm.
What do you do to make sure that you have that great first impression? Because that's what you had with me. I looked at you, boom, boom, boom. She's great. I'm going to try to connect with her. So share that, please.
I don't know. I just try to present myself authentically,
Right.
as much as I can. Um, and that's really just it. I don't try to be someone I'm not. I try to, everyone tells me, "Oh, you're so nice, you're so this." Well, because I am. Like I really I do try to be nice, you know what I mean? I tried my best to be a good person, and I think that just it comes across that way because that's just who I am. Who I
No,
am.
of course. And I think something that, if you want to be something, like let's say you don't think you're a nice person, right? Work towards being a nice person. Or if you feel like, "Oh, well, I have a resting bitch face," that's not always gonna fly by in like the real world. Like, like it's fun to say, but it might not be necessarily like the best plan of action for you to like advance and move forward. But it might be, depending on the line of service you are in. But not to discriminate against it. But it's sort of something that you do have to like assess about yourself. Like, how am I coming off to other people, especially if you're considering developing yourself professionally? If you want to grow, if you aren't making that great first impression, assess yourself. Assess what changes do need to be made. And you don't have to change your personality completely. It could just be minor tweaks, right? I think something someone once told me is like, what, dress for the job you want.
Mhm.
And I knew my boss, my first boss, she wore heels every single day. That woman was like 60 or something. And she was wearing heels. And I'm not talking kitten heels. Like, she was wearing like full on heels, right? And the days that I would dress up and elevate myself because I knew that's the standard she wanted, my day was just seamless. It was easy. And, there are little things like that that you can sort of pick up on and, shift around. I mean, I work from home now, so I wear leggings, so don't judge me. But if I'm in the office and I see that it's like an office culture, buy that blazer at H&M, buy the heels, at Zara, like do what you need to do. And this is sort of a fun question that I did ask Jackie. I think I forgot to ask Vince. But when have you ever gone through a breakup or an emotional, like chaotic time in your life where you had to clock in and be in the office? And how did you navigate that?
Um, yeah, you know what? I've, I've been through a few a few breakups. I'm very fortunate now that my boyfriend now doesn't put me through
He's
anything.
an angel.
I get to go to work happy, thank you. But yeah, those emotional times, I mean, I'm someone for a good old mental health day. Sometimes you can't, if you're not able to leave that stuff at home, sometimes you
Right.
just need to give yourself the day. And I don't see anything wrong with that. We have sick time, so you know what I mean?
You know what? That literally just registered for me. Like, you know what? If I'm crying too much, I probably shouldn't go in. But you're completely right. And did you ever, get to a point where your chaotic relationships are affecting your workplace, or did you just learn how to just separate that switch and not allow it to interfere with your job?
I think when, before my boyfriend, I was in toxic relationships, and I think when they started affecting me in other places aside from just me and that other person, I knew it was time that I needed to end it. And
Right.
it's very different, and it it goes to my own personal growth journey. Just being with a supportive partner makes all
Right.
the difference in the world. And whoever is listening, if you're not with that supportive partner, maybe it's time to reevaluate things because they shouldn't be affecting you anywhere outside,
Mhm.
you know, anywhere, So
1000%. I think that's something that unfortunately we did have to learn and experience. My last partner was not supportive, and that was one of the hardest decisions I had to make because I was still with him and I had to decide I'm still going to pursue these jobs, even though he's telling me not to apply, even though he's like, trying to make me like gaslight me into thinking that I'm not qualified for these positions, but I'm getting these interviews and I'm getting the job offers. So sometimes you do have to break up with that person. It is very hard to move past it. But if you are a young woman, well, regardless of what age you are, your career should be first,
Mhm,
especially if you don't have children. I
mhm,
think one of the best mindsets my mom put into me was education, career, make sure you have enough money, and always make sure that you can sustain yourself. That if you do want to walk away, you walk away. But
mhm,
unfortunately, sometimes you're a little dumb and you find yourself in situations for a little longer than what you should have been in. But I think if you sort of coach yourself to say, you know what, this is my end goal here, you
mhm,
have to know within yourself. Like, I think knowing now what I know as a woman, it's what is my personal integrity
mhm,
that I am trying to, hold on to, and what is holding my professional and personal goals outside of a boyfriend
mhm,
that are more important to me. And I
mhm,
think career wise, if I would have done it all over again, I would have broken up with him a long time ago.
mhm,
Education wise, too, I would have broken up with him a long time ago. And that's just things that you learn with. And as women, these are conversations that you kind of have. Like I remember, crying to my colleague because all my friends were like elsewhere. Like I didn't know who to cry to,
mhm.
and it was so hard. It was a hard thing to navigate. But if your guy isn't supportive, don't girlfriend or boyfriend.
Yeah.
They've gotta go. They've got to go. If they're telling you not to go get your grad school, you know what? To the curb. That's it.
Yeah, no, I just
Yeah,
mom, I'm sorry that you went through that. So, but I know they're growing pains. It's like,
right. Exactly. And you know what? It's not going to be the end of the world.
mhm,
But I think that's also something that I kind of want to segue is, do you surround yourself with like-minded colleagues, friends, your network? Now where you're at in life, how do you strategize making friends?
yeah. So I have a very close circle of friends. My boyfriend's always teasing me. He's like, "You need more friends," because he has a billion and a one. So his friends have become my friends. But my girlfriends that I've had for years now, like they're my girls, And I
Right.
connected obviously with you. I consider you one of my friends, and yeah, but I it's not necessarily, I guess, so much like-minded people, because I do like to hear different perspectives, you
Of
know what I mean?
course.
But as long as I'm not, I guess, surrounding myself with people who are negative, or who don't want to see me grow, or don't want to see themselves grow, you know what I mean? Because it's not
Right.
who I am as a person, and it's draining to me. So I don't surround myself with that kind of person.
Have you ever encountered attempting to befriend someone and you notice that they're very negative and you've had to cut them off?
I mean, yeah, I have in the past. There's just some people just aren't for you. You know what I mean?
Right.
Just like you're not for them. And that just, it is what it is, especially too in adult friendships. It's a lot different. You know what I mean?
Very
So
much so.
you're not in high school around these people 24/7. It's just like, you get together when you can get together. And um I'm a very busy person, so I'm not gonna, you know what I mean? I barely have time for my family, and
I
even
can't meet up for drinks.
no, but it's like I'm not gonna like surround myself and spend time with someone that drains me, you know?
Of course. And here's a fun question. Do you ghost them or do you tell them like we're just not meshing? What is that like for you?
I think just organically it just doesn't happen.
Fade the fade away. You do the fade.
Yeah, they both feel it on both ends, so it just doesn't.
Right, right. No, it's so interesting because when you first join the workforce, you think my colleagues are my friends, or you spend 8 hours a day, depending if you work in the office or not, right? And you're building these relationships, and there's area, and you're going through life, and sometimes you can't hide the tears in the cubicle, and it's just you have someone to share that information with. I think the first time I encountered like a workplace relationship gone south was someone that was at my same level, and they weren't happy to see me grow. They wanted me to do good, but not better than them. And that just kind of stayed with me. Like, it doesn't stop me from wanting to be kind and have conversations with colleagues and things like that. But it does make me more weary about sharing my light with people, because I will always be that person that any information that I obtained, I'm willing to share.
Mhm.
And hey, do what you want with it. But if there's some weird negative association with this, connection or relationship, you do have to learn to assess and read people. Do you have any tips on like learning when to read someone that just isn't good for you? Like, what would you say is the first red flag for you?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, because now I'm in a new workplace too, right? So I'm navigating different personalities, and you just kind of get a feel for everyone. And even in my past jobs, you get a feel, and I don't know. It's just when you have that gut feeling,
Mm.
you just follow it. Like, right?
And of course, no. Hey, what that woman intuition,
Yeah, exactly. Something's like, I'm not sure about you, so maybe we'll just keep my distance. Especially too in the workplace, because it's really, you are there to work. You know what I
Of
mean?
course.
Component, but at the end of the day, like, you have a duty and you have a job, and especially when you are in the public sector, you have a duty to the public that you're serving, and that's why you're there. So,
Of course. And would you say you take a new position or you move different departments and you keep a colleague friendship versus trying to cultivate friendships with your colleagues?
so I get it just really depends, like, on the person, because
Okay.
I have a few people that I really, really connected with, and I will hang out with them. You know what I mean? Outside of the workplace, just because they're just genuine people, and I know that, and I can feel that they're always looking out for my best interest, and I'm always looking out for theirs. They've never shown me any signs of, any ill will, we could say.
Right.
So I think again, it's just following your gut, and it comes with time too. At the beginning, I mean, maybe I wasn't the best judge of character, but again, you have to go through these things so you can learn. It's not just necessarily me telling you, because I mean, my mom has given me advice, and I was still going to do whatever the heck.
Right.
But sometimes you just have to find out for yourself and how you interact with people and those social cues that you might get that will be like, okay, red flag. I know not to, hang out with you.
No, of course. And right now that we're touching on advice and things like that, what is the best professional advice that has been shared to you that you have been able to apply?
I think the best professional advice that I've been given
Mhm.
is to stay stay willing to learn.
Okay, so that learn, that's it.
Even too, when I got my PE for my last job, just getting off probation, my supervisor she told me, she's all, just keep asking questions, Alyssa, and you're gonna go places. Just keep asking questions. Always, always just be curious and just be willing to learn. And because I am so willing to learn, it's just like it's always been reinforced to me that that's what I've been doing.
No, that's fantastic. And, I think office culture is something that is so important to people to be able to read, right? So you've been fortunate enough where, city of West Covina, city of Glendora, apparently amazing office culture, workplace environment, very positive. If you had a toxic work environment, would you be willing to leave or how would you navigate that?
So I did, and I just put it in the back of my head because I was really only there for like 3 or 4 months.
Okay.
It was with the county. It was
Okay.
with a separate park, and I got pulled there. Well, it's I guess it was kind of like a promotion, but at the park, the way it worked was if you did well, you would go from it was a cashier, right? So you would work at the gate taking the payments from the cars, and then you would go to the boat dock, and then you would take those payments, and then you would go to the main office where you would be in charge of counting all the funds and everything. And I moved up that chain pretty quickly because I had previous Parks and Rec experience. And
Mhm.
I don't know what it was, but there was this girl who just had it out for me.
Oh,
Had it out for me. And when I tell you I would cry at work because this girl was so mean to me, I would cry at work because this girl was so mean to me,
did you report her?
I did. I did, and it was probably one of, like, the worst experiences because then I was also young, you know what I mean? And I started crying, and I got told
Don't be
that,
a coward.
don't be yeah, they told me, "Don't be known as a crier in the county." And from that moment
That's
on,
so harsh. I'm a crier.
you know what though? When I think back of it, because it was an older man who told me that, I think
Okay.
back and I'm like, "You know what? You were not very kind, and you
Right.
good example in my trajectory of my accounting career. I'm just not even gonna pay attention to you." And I didn't let him and my negative experience with him impact all my other experiences because it's been great. So
Right.
yeah, so I just bounced. I bounced. I applied for everything that I could, and I knew I wasn't gonna want to. I didn't want to work there. I wasn't gonna
That's
be.
fantastic. And when you were being interviewed for the positions, did they ask you, why are you leaving? It's such a
No,
short
because
turnaround.
it would just be considered a promotion, and
Okay.
I just wanted to get on a permanent item because the item as a cashier was recurrent. It was still temporary, so it was only working part-time hours. So basically, I got to decide like, oh, if I'm coming in or not.
That's
So
a great trade secret there, people. So take note of that. In the county, you get promoted if you don't like something, so it does not add to the interview process.
yeah.
That sort of brings me into something that's so controversial, right? And you can be as protective as you'd like. But how would you say the sexism, racism, and discrimination in the county? Have you seen it? Have you experienced it? Or has the county done a great job in muffling all, not muffling, but uh, improving themselves, right? Because all of our there's a little bit of racism, underlying racism in everything that we do, even within politics. So, and sexism and discrimination. What would you say? was one of your worst experiences? And you don't have to say where. And what was one of your best, where someone was like, "Hey, we're not going to tolerate that,"
Mhm.
if you
Um,
have experience.
I definitely think that my worst experience was me crying and being told you don't want to be known as a
Not as
crier.
a crier, and that's a very male centric
Mhm.
mindset.
Yeah, and it was, and just the undertones. It was him talking to a little girl at the time. You know,
Mm,
like he was like scolding me,
age
and
discrimination, yeah, ageism, yeah.
I don't. I don't know. I just when I think back to it, I'm like, dang, he did so many things wrong, and I probably could have got him in a lot of trouble for telling me that stuff.
Why didn't you report him? Were you scared, or were you just like, "I'm about to leave, so it doesn't matter"?
Over it. I was like, okay, this environment is just not for me. This is not what I want to be a part of. This isn't a good representation of Parks and Recreation, and I'm just not going to even spend any more time here. And that was just it. You know what I mean? I kind of
Right.
just, you know, was done with it. I just didn't want to be involved anymore.
No, of course, and do you feel like he sort of had favoritism to the person that was sort of bullying you essentially at work, or why was that his response to you?
Yeah, I think there was favoritism just because she had been there for so long. Um, but again, no one was blind to what was going on. Even now, people that I used to work with there have told me, "I have no idea why she was so mean to you."
And
I
no one advocated for you still. They saw it happening and
like,
nobody was
we're all young kids, you know what I mean?
okay.
Like,
Yes.
no one knows how to, navigate even that process. Now, if that were to happen to me, it would be a completely different story because I
Mhm.
know that hostile work environments are not okay. Bullying
Right.
okay in the workplace. It wasn't, taught to me at that young age. But again, we all live, we all learn, right? So it's if my son ever goes through that, like I know how to guide him through that kind of thing. But my future kids.
Of
Um,
course.
um, but yeah, and then what was the other part of it?
A positive experience, right? Where someone was attempting to, discriminate you, or you were experiencing some sort of, you know, a negative experience and somebody was advocating for you, or like they shut it down real quick and they're like, this is not the place for that.
So I think I've been very fortunate to work in diverse groups. Um, and two, again, predominantly female after that. So I really haven't had uh that negative experience to have to be stood up for aside
Right.
from that one time. So I've been very, very grateful. Have my supervisors and leadership, have they spoke up against things that they didn't seem fit? Yes, they have. And I'm
Yeah.
very proud of them, you know what I mean? And
Right.
these are why they are my role models essentially. But again, I haven't had that experience. And I know it does go on. I know because I've read articles that it goes on in certain offices, and I've just been very fortunate to not experience it.
No, and I think if you also are thinking of what sector is the right sector for me when it comes to being a minority, being a woman, I think working in the public sector, there is no room for one, a public scandal, or two, discrimination to the levels that the other sectors
Mhm.
do tolerate and give a little leeway to. Not to say that they aren't working for a better tomorrow, but the working for any public organization, the report system or the HR system, very different. They shut it down really quickly. So if you are dealing with a toxic work environment because you're in the public sector, consider jumping to the public, where that's something that they breathe and embody and truly, stand behind. And that's something that I am very impressed by. And I'm glad to hear that was like the one and done experience that you've had. No, like my last company, very toxic, very toxic, in full circle boomers paradise in discrimination, elitism, sexism, sexual harassment. I remember, one time office culture is what the executives make of it,
Mhm.
right? And
You guys are.
I walked in, you can cut it with knife with how toxic it was,
Mhm.
right? And so I remember one time there was this I was warned by my manager, like, "Hey, that guy is known for, like, sexual harassment. So just watch out, right? And I'm like, what? I'm like, he's never been reported. I'm like, he's been reported. It just nothing happens. Like he's at the company and he was with the company for like 20 plus years. And I remember one time, he had gone from having a male manager work under him to a female manager, right? And the way he conducted business with the male manager, it was very to the point, blunt, and that was it. They
Yeah.
almost hated each other, right? This female comes in and I walk by her cubicle and this man is literally like sitting on her desk, just like, right next to her as they're like working. And to me, that's inappropriate. I'm like, no man should be sitting on your desk like that. Like his butt like was on her desk, right? And he's all
Boundaries.
and everything. And they were right in front of another executive, a female executive. And I go into her office and I'm like, hey, I don't think that's okay. Like, like what's that about? And she's like, oh, what is he doing? Because he had already like stood up. And I'm
Mhm.
just like, okay, well, that's interesting. And considering that she had worked with him as long as he's been, controversial in the organization, I'm like, that's not work appropriate. And that's not even me being delicate because he had already like done something inappropriate with me, but it wasn't like beyond. But again, they just let him stay on with this position. And for me, it's like you can report someone, but not everything is going to get followed up on, or not everything is going to get, he's not going to get fired for his job, right? And having to navigate that experience where it's just like, well, now I just have to like steer away. And at the time, I told myself, you know what? This isn't a company I want to work for anymore. And I was already like on my way out when that was occurring. But I do wish I would have vocalized that even more. I did. I was scared. It was such a like a powerful company to work for, and to even like start rocking the boat a little bit, I would have been fired like
Yeah.
immediately. And so work culture and work environment, and I have stories for days about that company, but I will say that once a day. It's so hard. Well, now the organization I work for now is fantastic, and I'm gonna say that's something that you should be looking um, at the history of, right? What is it? Glass door, glass ceiling. I'm a huge advocate. I regret not writing a review as soon as I left that job. That's what I should have done, because keeping companies accountable for the kind of culture that they have is so important. You're not going to see change if that's what you're looking for. But I also wanted to sort of touch base on you with, would you ever consider segueing into something else? Like, you say you want a job in the county. What is your end goal for your career within the county? Do you want to run for office one day?
I wouldn't say maybe run for office, but but I definitely want to, go into a leadership role. I don't know how long I will stay in the district attorney's office. As much as I love it so much, there's really not a lot of room for growth for me unless I decide to become a district attorney. And much as, I support my DAs, I really don't have an
You don't
interest.
want to go to law school, Alyssa, right after we're done with grad school?
No, no. I don't have an interest in that. But if I can grow here, I will be more than willing to. And I do love all the connections that I've made. I love the work I do, but I definitely want to segue into a leadership role. And wherever that might be in the county, I'm just willing to do it. And if it means a different department one day, then it means a different department one day. I think we learned something good from I forget who it was in our last class, right? The leadership class where he had different people come on. But the gentleman who came on, and he said, don't limit yourself basically in
Right.
in your career choices. So that I really took that really hit home for me, because I feel like I'm so adamant with Los Angeles County, because I have such an attachment to it, and I have this, I don't know, but we'll see what happens. And
You know what? It's such a great and interesting thing that you came to that realization. To me, I had that exact same mindset. I'm never leaving Los Angeles. I'm never leaving California. This is it for me. But talking to my mentor, one thing she said is going out of state for your career is one of the biggest growth development experiences that you can live through. She had, moved to Chicago to go anchor out there. And she's like, the level of growing up and just maturing and, knowledge that she cultivated and developed was at a different level to what she would have experienced if she had stayed, right? And to me, that wasn't attainable or something that I really wanted to do until I saw the housing market and I was like, am I ever gonna afford a home? I don't think I am, right? I'm gonna be honest. That was one of the biggest like contenders to why I would even consider leaving to a different
Yeah.
state. But also, I think with the recent influx of different political ideologies, right, where you see such a shift in mindsets that you think, are there states that could benefit from someone that has a voice like mine? Like, I want to help the community
Mhm.
regardless of what it is, and I want to help people. And I think, again, being that change you want to see is so important where I can work for the public sector or the nonprofit sector or the private sector in whatever state I'd like to. But it's just knowing what kind of person you are and what kind of help you can bring other people. And so that's how I sold myself onto like potentially leaving for another position. But also, it's like if you can work for a company that is willing to relocate you or pay for you to just shift around the country or even the world, go ahead and do that. Like this last job that I applied for, it was something that would allow me to deploy, globally. And it's a lifetime opportunity because companies don't do that anymore.
Mhm.
They aren't paying for you to go relocate or go travel.
Mhm.
And so it's an important component. I also wanted to ask you, and you just triggered something that was that was in my head. Oh, with you, developing and like moving, and you have a very impressive resume. Did you ever experience, workplace disappointment or job disappointment where you are ready to move to the next stage and you applied to 10 jobs and you got rejected to 10 jobs? Like, how did you stay motivated?
Yeah, I think just circling back to like the tests, the exams are hard, you know. I didn't band very well the first few times taking them, and that was really discouraging. But again, I just had to stay motivated, and I'm one of those people that, things happen at the right time that they're supposed to happen. And I'm a
Mhm.
believer that, God has a plan for me. And even too with this position, everything happened. I'm close to graduation and I'll be applying for more positions soon. You know what I mean? And
Right.
just another sign of, you know what? No, you need to focus on school. And I have no problem with that. But again, I think just trying to find the positive moments, the positive sides of things that keeps you motivated, and the disappointment, you know?
Right. And that also kind of segues like, you spoke on your mentorship with your bosses and things like that.
Mm.
What kind of questions do you start asking them to sort of gauge one, if they're willing to help, but to open that conversation like, hey, I need help developing into this. Like,
Mm.
what is your first interaction with people? Because that's something scary. Like, I knew I couldn't talk to my last boss about wanting to grow even within the company, let alone leave the company, versus the conversation I was having with my previous boss that I just had, where she was open and she was the one pushing me to do it. So what does it look like for you?
So my last supervisor, she was really like a second mom, my work mom, you know what I mean? She was always really, really encouraging. And even to like, she's, oh, you're one of my babies leaving, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it was really easy for me to have that conversation with her just because she knew that I wanted to grow. And then two, I'm one of those people that on my lunch, I sit at my desk and I'm doing homework. So they see me working towards a goal and they know that, I'm not going to always stay there and they don't want me to always stay there because
Right.
they're like invested in me in a sense because they keep teaching me certain things because they want to grow. And I remember having a conversation with her even recently that, there was times when she was held back, that her bosses held her back and she was
Right.
never going to be that person to hold anyone back. And that's how she's been as a leader, as a supervisor and instilling these things with her staff. And I've been super appreciative of that. So I
Right.
comfortability.
No, that's fantastic. And I think that's also something, that I learned. Like, my mentor helped me through so much, all the knowledge that she has ever given me. I share that freely with people. Because again, I think I read a quote one time, I don't know if it was on Tumblr or Twitter or something, but it's like, be the person, 5-year-old you would have wanted or something like that, right? So be the person that you would have wanted during the beginning of your career. Like,
Mm.
hey, I just got this promotion. Let me help you get a promotion, even though I'm your supervisor or even though I'm your manager. And so remember how positive of an impact that was for you in your life, and sort of pass it forward to someone else and help other people develop the same way you were helped. And I think that's something that, at least, from what I sometimes you don't get that. And even though people were helped, here it is, they're not willing to help other people.
Mhm.
And that's very toxic. It's not something you should want to do, but I'm glad to hear that you're willing to want to help other people, because not everyone is going to, pay it forward. So that's fantastic. And, I do want to circle back on, social media and YouTube, because I think that's something that, again, you've sort of mastered, and I would consider an extracurricular for you outside of your professional career, right? So what structure do you have for yourself to say, okay, I'm allocating this much time to social media. My social media don't make me scrolling. I mean, by posting these um the motivational posts, the structure that you're doing, and you are going to start a YouTube channel, everyone. So make sure you go and subscribe. I'll have all the information below. Like, what is pushing you to do that and stay motivated? Because I think what a lot of people have an issue with is, you clock out and you're tired
Mhm.
and you don't want to think about projects.
Mhm.
How do you balance that? What does that look like?
I think just because I've been so deeply invested in personal growth and development, having that organically come, it's been, I guess, easier to me. I think probably posting the pictures of myself is a little bit more like, okay, I'm not, I don't know. I'm not used to my
People need to see your face. You know what? No, you need face and name recognition in this industry. So
no, I drive my boyfriend nuts. I'm like, you have to take a picture of me so I could post it. But it also has been a good practice though too, because sometimes I'm not wearing makeup and I am posting pictures, and it's like, that's something I wasn't always confident in doing, but it's like a newfound confidence that I found in myself. So that's another aspect of growth that I'm trying to portray. But yeah, I don't know. I just, again, I'm a real good time blocker and stuff. And if I have a free moment, I will go ahead and do that. But as far as, YouTube goes, I I'm trying to set up a plan so I can have that going. You know what I
what
mean?
is your channel going to be about? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so just based on kind of like 9 to 5 kind of life, balancing school, balancing work. I mean, I've done this for so long, and
And you
I
do it well.
and I feel like I always get asked the same question, how do you do it? So if I could just, share tips and tricks of what I've been learning, along the way and what has worked for me, hopefully it works for someone else. Um, and then just two, goal setting and just fun stuff too, here and there.
Of
But
course, of course. Give us a sneak peek of what is your best goal setting strategy.
I think I really have to I sit and I think about it, right? And then I kind of like brainstorm a little bit. And then from that brainstorm, I figure out exactly what I want to do. So I have like my yearly goals, and then I break those down into monthly goals. But then I also have like long-term goals, right? Like my 5-year plan. So it's really just breaking them down and applying habits and just different things that I can do to achieve those goals.
No, that's fantastic. And I think something that maybe people who aren't familiar with public administration is setting milestones, right? And that's something that we speak on so much. And surprisingly, I've used it for many interviews. But we're like, I like to set milestones for myself. When you're thinking of life and extracurricular outside of work, whether that is going to the gym, starting a YouTube channel, or finding a passion project or a hobby, it is about learning how to motivate yourself to do it, right? And also structuring yourself. So be realistic. One thing that I told my girlfriend when she was trying to move up within her workplace is like, I was helping her with her resume, and she's like, oh, I don't know. I just haven't had time to do it. I'm like, hey, if you break it down and you say, I just spent 10 minutes watching this YouTube video, you could have spent 10 minutes working on your resume. And I think I had someone share that with me. And when I broke it down like that, I'm like, I just spent an hour on my phone lollygagging, and I could have been productive for an hour. Sort of hold that value at it's worth exactly the same, and assess what you're doing, and then challenge yourself and really move forward with that. And so I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
um
I think definitely that shift in mindset is like key. You know what I mean?
yes.
Because I used to be queen of procrastination. And I was like, wait, this is causing me stress and this is
Yeah,
causing me anxiety. So what do I really want to align myself with so I'm not feeling this way? And I
right.
think too what centered me being trying to be so prepared, being so organized because I don't like feeling the opposite. You know what I mean?
No, 1000%. And what's so funny that you bring that up is that I was asked in an interview, when was the last time, you were reprimanded, and how did you react to that? Right. And I thought to myself, it actually stumbled me because I haven't been reprimanded since for a very long time. Like in my professional career, I haven't, because I did horrible in college. And that lit a fire in my butt my first year when I found out, one, I'm not a procrastinator. I am not someone that can turn in a 20-page paper that is even semi decent 3 hours before it's due. I have to, make the outline, cross reference my notes in the PowerPoint, start writing, get a second pair of eyes, and, break down my structure like that. So I developed that habit of knowing that I do not like procrastinating, and the quality of work that I'm turning in, I was able to layer my college, sort of lifestyle and wanting to be organized, mixed with my first position, with my first job being very, meticulous,
Mhm.
clean, and just punctual. And so that sort of layered on, and that kind of speaks onto like your professional and reputation. Right. And so now it's like, no, I haven't, because I don't like procrastinating. And procrastination does associate with, sloppy work,
Mhm.
and being known for scrambling in the office. Like, oh, again, if you want to have a good polished image, don't
Mhm.
procrastinate.
Mhm.
Know what you're turning in. It's
Yeah.
funny. Has there been any sort of habits from bosses that you've stolen or that you've tried emulating?
Um, you know, well, all my supervisors have been very, very dedicated to their jobs, right? They're always
Mhm.
there. Even through COVID, I think I've seen a lot of it where they were like holding the fort down a lot of the
Right.
time, regardless of whatever was going on. And I just think that that loyalty, I guess, to the organization is something that I have emulated because it's like, wow, you guys are really, really passionate about what you do. You guys are really, really dedicated about what
Right.
you do. You're authentic about it. Like you are showing up because you care. So I think that's really something that I've gravitated towards. And then too, they've always just been really just on top of everything. And they've always been like people, I guess. They care about their employees. They're also working supervisors where they're not afraid to do stuff that their staff is doing if they need to jump in and do it. I think that's like
Right.
the biggest takeaway.
No, it's so funny because I'd like to share mine. So Susan Stell, that woman, professional. And one thing, those clear folders that you put your documents in,
Mhm.
that is how she submitted work, and that is how she wanted work to be returned. And I realized that was very neat and very clean and very presentable. And now that's what I do. Like if I'm turning something in, and we're not in college, you don't have to turn in anything in a clear, folder or anything, but it makes a huge difference to the habits that you are, picking up. And that habit is a very professional and polished one, right? Versus just turning in tattered paper that's a little bent on the side. Every little minute detail makes the difference.
Mhm.
And I think something else that I sort of took from her was, that woman was so composed, like she was not going to cry in the office. Like, and after working for her for a year, I got yelled at by a male, like the CEO. Like he yelled at me for something that she did. And I'm a crier, like I'm a big baby. And like he yelled at me, and I'm not gonna say I didn't cry because I just like the tears were right there. And I'm just like, and he walked away, and I'm just like, if I don't blink, I will have to cry in front of him. Exactly. And so it stuck on me, but the yelling that woman received was 20 times worse than the one that I did. And not to say that I'm not going to ever stop crying in the workplace or anything like that, but I sort of understood that as women, we kind of don't get that same luxury, or we don't get that same, you know, I guess grace, right? You do have to like suck it up. And I know you shared your experience, and like I can sympathize with that because I experienced that too. Like I wasn't crying in front of her, I was going to the toilet, but it was something that really resonated with me, where it's like she's feminine but manly at the same time, or not manly, but she knows how to control her emotions. And
Yeah.
I think that year I did sort of have to like navigate that a lot, because she was pro and against women, but at the same time, it was an interesting thing. But I did learn a lot from her, I will say. But is there anything that you want to share, whether it's your personal growth or professional growth, that you feel like we haven't touched on? Because you're so well-rounded, Alyssa. Like I just can't ever say it enough that you're
No,
very
you
impressive.
are. Thank you.
No, I'm not even just saying that to say that, because you're my third guest. But again, you made that impression when I first met you, and that's that we're on virtual calls. We're texting, and it's not that we're meeting one-on-one or anything like, or like can see your office or anything. You might be a Slav or something, no. But you do have a lot to give to people. So again, make sure you follow her Instagram and her new YouTube channel. But give us some final remarks, essentially, of what you would want, what advice you want to give to people, because information is power.
Mhm. I think just personally and professionally, academically, um, always push yourself. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And if you're scared to do that, look for a supportive circle to help you. You know,
Yeah.
I just feel like once you find your people, once you find your niche, once you find your passion, things just become so much easier. There's a lot of doors that open, and you won't be able to do that though unless you take a chance on yourself.
Right. No, and I did want to sort of ask you, and I guess I lied, not the last final remarks, but your career trajectory is, would you tell people like, hey, don't worry about like jumping from job to job. Like it hasn't been a negative for you. Um, do you think it's like a myth that, just was created on the internet, where it's like, oh, it looks really bad on your resume if you only been for a job for a year? Like,
I think it just depends in what job I guess you are. Maybe it doesn't make sense if you're jumping from, I don't know, working in construction to working in, I don't know, something polar opposite, and then you
right, right.
polar opposite again, and then here you go. But I stayed in the same secretarial pool and clerical work the whole entire time of my county career, that I think that's why it's worked, because I've built on everything, and I've learned and enhanced those skills that I have learned that I can apply to the next job. And it looks that way because I'm still technically an LA County employee. You know what I mean? Even
Right.
though it's a different department, it's still the same family.
And do you feel confident that you are going to be able to take this sort of clerical work into a different department to grow? Because you said there's no more growth in your current job.
Mhm.
How confident do you feel that with everything, all of your skill sets, it's something that you are going to be able to move to the executive? Like, is there a position like in the county right now that you're eyeing that fits that?
Probably like the analyst positions, um, just because I just like to be more on like that research side of things. Because again, I love learning. I think the skills that I have learned will transfer over, and I can enhance them again, and they'll correlate. but yeah, I am pretty confident. And again, to like my advice, I'm pushing myself. Like
Right.
this is what I want and this is what I envision and I'm going to do what I need to do to get there.
No, and I think that's so important, and the it's so important because there's so many people that get, turned away from even wanting to push in their career. And I'll confess to the audience that I was pushing to advance myself in my career and I was getting job rejections. And it's a tough pill to swallow, even when you are, you feel like you're the best candidate and you're not there. And instead of just giving up and being complacent, allowed myself to cry to 3 to 5 business days, not 3 to 5, 1 to 2 business days. I was like, all right, I'm gonna allow myself to be frustrated and really just cry it out right now, suck it up, and move forward. Because again, if you allow that, sort of negative mindset, because it does take you down that spiral sometimes when you're not seeing the results you want.
Mhm.
When you're doing a disservice to yourself. Like,
Right.
push yourself, like literally push yourself. And again, I think one thing that I really enjoyed about you is that we were kind of like-minded, right? Where we want to grow professionally,
Mhm.
we want to advance, and we have constant communications. That even though I feel like on my end I've lagged a little more with going to these forums or these, what are they? Professional development. What am I trying to say? What's the word? Conferences. There we go. Like trying to go to conferences, it's like looking at ways to develop yourself, right?
Mhm.
So now I have my conference buddy, and honestly, once we're done with school, like I'm so up to go and like go to as many conferences as we can. But at the same time, it's knowing that the people that I'm surrounding myself are also on that same wavelength,
Mhm.
right? And even if they're not, it's like, well, there's pros and cons with everyone that's in your life, and they're in your life for a reason. But push yourself. At the end of the day,
Mhm.
Alyssa, look at Alyssa, great county life. And again, I completely love your family backstory. Like,
Thank you.
okay, I want to leave that final remark with you talking about your familial legacy, because I think as Latinos, every first generation that, their parents were immigrants, you are the success story that our parents, our grandparents wanted for us in coming to this country. Like, how, which is, it's just nice to see. And I'm sorry, I'm like lost for words, but it's what they worked for and it's what we're working for, because we want our children to be in your position, right? And so can you kind of talk about how that might have like enhanced your experience and how it just really is a nice, network of family? Like, we don't always get that, and I am just like in awe with it. Can you
Thank
just talk about it a little bit more?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think again, I am very blessed. I am very, very blessed. I am surrounded by amazing, amazing people. But you know, they've always pushed me, and they've always known that I was capable. They've always believed in me, and they've been supportive. And I think knowing how much that they believed in me, knowing how much they supported me, it held a different, I don't know, sense of accountability
Right.
that I am here to make them proud. And I'm here to make myself proud because that makes them proud,
Yeah.
So like
It's a
revolve.
domino effect. It's a domino effect.
So yeah, so I mean, I'm just again, I'm very blessed, and sometimes I am in awe too of, okay, I'm really doing this, and I don't know, I'm very excited to do whatever I can in this lifetime and make everyone as proud as they could be. So
No, and again, your legacy, and as Latinos, that's what we're building. We're building this legacy, and Alyssa is that embodiment of the legacy that our everyone is trying to build, right? And so, thank you so much for sharing your story. I really do appreciate you coming onto this platform. I really do appreciate it. And again, everyone, make sure you follow her social medias. Do you want to just give a quick shout out to your handle?
it is at Alyssa T. Lavalle everywhere.
So make sure you follow and subscribe to her, because she is an amazing young professional on her way up. And thank you so much. And I hope you join in on our next episode. So thank you.
Thank you.
Let me